everyone, Mr. Macintosh here, and we've got a huge update for OpenCore Legacy Patcher version 1.2.0. This is a big update because it fixes some of the issues that were caused by the 14.1 update. Whether you needed the kernel debug kit on your Mac or you didn't and you had problems booting after installing the 14.1 update, the developers went in and redesigned major pieces of the updater to prevent these issues from happening again. And I'm going to show you how that works. We're also going to go over 7 different demonstration Macs. We've got now 4 macOS Sonoma machines to be able to cover every aspect of hardware that we possibly can. Plus, we're going to cover macOS Ventura, macOS Monterey, and macOS Big Sur. You're definitely going to want to stick around for this one. Let's jump in and get started. Let's go over some of the highlights of the 1.2.0 update. Then we'll go over some of the fixes. Then we'll show you a walkthrough of how to update to the latest version. And then we'll talk about some of the 14.1 issues and then go over some of the download devices later. First of all, if you have a 2017 21.5 4K iMac and you had some rendering issues, this is fixed. Also, there was resolve in LLDB Xcode debugging crashing on extracted frameworks and binaries. There's also improvements to the handling of T1 security chips. Now, this is applicable for Touch Bar 2016 and 2017 MacBook Pros, and if you find that the Touch Bar is non-functional in Sonoma, you may need to boot to macOS Ventura to reinstall the T1 firmware. Next is a new LaunchDaemon for preparing the host for macOS updates. Now, this is what I mentioned in the beginning happening again. There's cleaning of the potentially problematic kernel extensions for non-kernel debug kit Macs, and then for Macs that need the KDK, fetching the KDK for incoming OS, reducing the need for the network connection after update, and that's where all the problem happened. I'm going to go over that when we get to that section later. I always mention, if you are trying to run a very solid system and you don't want to have any issues at all, again, I still recommend running macOS Ventura or macOS Monterey. They are extremely solid, and that's why there was no issues with those machines for any of the 13.6.1 or the 12.7.1 and OpenCore Legacy Patcher. So again, keep that in mind. macOS Sonoma runs when you got everything running, but there could be some bumpy roads because Apple is continually changing things, causing the developers to work extra hard to get these issues fixed. Next thing I want to talk about is I always want to mention supporting the patcher. If you have the means to be able to do so and OpenCore Legacy Patcher has helped you, you can go out to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher official Open Collective. Again, if you have the means and you would like to be able to support the developers. Now let's look at some of the fixes and improvements of the 1.2.0 update. First of all, there is a brand new OpenCore Legacy Patcher update page. So as soon as you log into the OS, the LaunchDaemon kicks off and says, hey, is there an update available for OpenCore Legacy Patcher? And this is the new window that you're going to see, which is really nice because it tells you what version is available. It also tells you what version you have and asks you, would you like to update? Plus, it shows you a nice page here of the fixes that are in the latest release. And what's nice is that the developers will be able to communicate with you if there's an issue. So for example, with the 14.1 update or anything in the future, it could say like, there's an issue with 14.3, you'll definitely want to update to this version before, or stay away from 14.3 or something like that when this comes out. So again, this is really nice how the patch notes are integrated into the update window. And you got your options which you can download, install, view on GitHub if you didn't want to automatically install, and you can just ignore for now. We talked about the LLDB crashes fixed earlier, and we also added support for detecting the non-T in DFU mode, and that's what is happening if you do not have embedded OS. So it boots up, it says, do I have embedded OS? No. So the touch bar is now in DFU mode waiting for the installation, and now there's for detecting the touch bar in that situation. Resolve macOS 14.2 Core Auth crashes on T1 Macs. There's also resolve the missing NFC firmware on T1 Macs, and there's updates to the non-metal binaries for macOS Sonoma. There was a photo apps crash that was fixed, resolved the login window crashes that I actually was showing some of in the previous videos for the 2011 17-inch that I had was due to the live wallpaper. Once I turned that off, then I didn't get those login windows crashes anymore. So I'll be interested to see if I can turn that back on or if something else was changed in that particular one. There was a workaround tile window pop-up freezing with apps by disabling the feature. And then there's a workaround for monochrome desktop widgets rendering issues by enforcing full color. And this can be disabled in the OpenCore Legacy Patcher settings. Now we can talk about some of the new pieces that are going to protect the system from having some of the 14.1 issues happen again in the future. Because what should have happened is that after the system comes back up, after the 14.1 update from 14.0, it's got a cached kernel debug kit package that has all the drivers needed to be able to connect to Wi-Fi. Because remember, after you install an update, all those patches are wiped away. For the Macs that need Wi-Fi, you don't have any Wi-Fi, you don't have any acceleration. So what happens is the patcher reinstalls that with the previous KDK to get basic Wi-Fi to be able to reach out and get the 14.1 KDK. But that failed because of the changes in 14.1 were not compatible with the 14.0 kernel debug kit files and extensions needed to be able to do that. So that failed, the system rebooted, and then it was completely broken. And that's what caused those problems. But now what's going to happen is the OpenCore Legacy Patcher team has reworked it to be able to check every time there's a software update going in the background. If the Sonoma Mac says, hey, there's a 14.2 update, and I'm going to download it and prepare it for you automatically. If you have that selected, the patcher is going to see that happening, and it's also going to kick off Cache OS. Cache the necessary patcher files for the operating system to be installed. Example, the kernel debug kit driver package. While you're downloading 14.2, I'm also going to go out there and get our 14.2 KDK. So you're going to be all set when we come back up from a 14.2 update, and we're not going to have that 14.1 issue anymore because we have the drivers. We're going to be able to connect to Wi-Fi. We'll be able to complete the package in case there's a newer one available by the time you actually install. And there's also a new argument to prepare for the update. Clean up the patcher files for the operating system to be installed. Example, library extensions. And that's the second problem. There was two separate problems for the 14.1 update. The systems that needed the kernel debug kit, and there was also an issue with the machines that did not need the kernel debug kit, and they had patcher files still in library extensions that weren't cleaned up. That's why I pulled up this Mac Mini, because that does not need it, and I'll show you where those are now. So here's the Mac Mini 2012 that does not need a kernel debug kit, and this is library extensions, and the only ones you should see here is SoftRate, HighPoint RR, and HighPoint OP KEX. What the patcher will do is clean out any of these before it tries to do the root patching. You can see that this machine is prepped and ready to go because it is on the original version of Sonoma 1.0.0 and ready to go for 1.2.0. So this is what's going to be working to be able to clean up these extensions before we install the root patches, so we don't have any of those problems again for the non-KDK Macs. Now, before we get to the LaunchDaemon part, I want you to understand, I know this stuff can be confusing, right? But the reason why I'm trying to give a basic explanation here is that I want to help you understand. If you want to, a lot of people don't even want to hear these deep details, but there's a lot of people that want to learn more about how the patcher works and find out what caused these issues. The developers took a lot of time to build and test this new system to prevent this from happening again. And that's why I want to highlight this, because they did such great work to be able to put this stuff together to prevent this from happening again. So the next piece is the new LaunchDaemon for handling the macOS updates. So the plist, and we'll get to that after I update to 1.2.0 on our test device, is called macOS-update.plist, and this will resolve the KDK-less Macs from failing to boot after updating from 14.0 to 14 whatever new in the future. And that's what we kind of talked about up here to be able to clear these out. It also adds support for KDK caching for the OS to be installed. That's going to keep that package in there, and it's going to download that when it detects that a new version of macOS update is being downloaded. It is invoked when the update is staged. It's library, LaunchDaemons, Dortania, OpenCore Legacy Patcher, macOS Update, plist, and that is what's going to be checking for that update system. And then we've got the OS caching plist, and this resolves the unsupported old KDKs from being used post-update, and that's what was causing some of those problems. And this one is invoked when the update is downloading, and that location is library, LaunchDaemons, Dortania, OpenCore Legacy Patcher, OS-caching plist. Now let's get into the live demo on how to install the latest update to 1.2.0. Now the Mac that we're going to use is that Mac Mini late 2012 that does not need the kernel debug kit. But what I've heard from a lot of users is that they're in a situation here where, like, I'm not even going to update until the new version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher comes out, and that's fine. Because if you did that and you're still on 14.0, you're going to be fine going forward, because all these protections are being put into place before you update to 14.1, 14.2, or 14.1.1. This Mac here is on 14.0, the initial release, and on the initial release of OpenCore Legacy Patcher 1.0.0. So what we're going to do is we're going to update to the latest version. So all you had to do is open up the app from applications from the alias, and you'll get this message. So we're going to download and install 1.2.0. Okay, extracting the update. Installing. Type in our password, and there we go. 1.2.0 has been successfully installed in Library Application Support Dortania. Remember, that's what we talked about in previous videos, that the actual application is in Application Support Dortania folder, and then this is where the app is stored. If you had put the application in Applications, you won't see that little alias icon, but that's okay, because as soon as you install it, will replace the application in here, so you don't have it popping up again saying there's a version mismatch because it's trying to open up this, and this one is actually updated. So as long as you see this in here and you see the alias, you're good to go. If you wanted to add that down to your dock here, you can drag the alias down to the other side of the previous apps, and then there's your alias there, so to be able to open that up. Once we have the application open, it'll be in the previous application, and then you can actually drag this over here to the dock and have the icon over here in the main dock that way. So there we go. Update successful. We are now 1.2.0. Would you like to update the OpenCore EFI patches on your EFI drive or the bootloader patches? Yes, we do. So we'll click on that, and then we want to install to disk. In our internal hard drive and our internal EFI. Password. Done. It's asking us, do we want to install the root patches? Yes, we do. Now remember, we're doing this and it's all nice and automated because we're going to make sure that this 14.0 Sonoma 2012 Mac Mini will run properly with no issues with 1.2.0 before we make the jump. Plus, because we're on 1.2.0, we're not going to have all those issues with the 14.1 update because we're going to have those protections in play. Now we have the graphics IV bridge and we have modern wireless. We'll start the root patching, and yes. Type in our password. And there we go. If you had a system that needed the kernel debug kit, you would see a pop up here where it would be downloading the KDK right here, and then it would extract that, install that, and then it would use those drivers in there to be able to build that snapshot that we're going to use to be able to boot the system up with all the drivers installed. And there we go. Patching is complete. We need to reboot to take effect. And there we go. That's what I wanted to show you. If you see this, that is the LaunchDaemon that is being installed, and it's letting you know that that's being installed. And that's a new system for macOS Ventura and macOS Sonoma, that if a LaunchDaemon is installed in the background, you will get a notification here that that's happening and this is okay, and that's why I wanted to show you this. So you can just click on that X and we will hit reboot and restart. Okay, we're back up after the update. Let's fire up the application again to make sure that those patches install properly. And we can click on Post Install Root Patch. All applicable patches are already installed with our date stamp and our version, so we're good to go. So now that we've got that all updated, we want to take a look at that new system. When we look at the patch logs, we want to first take a look at the new LaunchDaemon handling the macOS updates, and that's macOS update-plist. So let's take a look at that first, and that is in Macintosh hard drive library LaunchDaemons, and then the macOS update plist. And we can see right away what's going on in here. We've got a watch path. What that does is that this LaunchDaemon will constantly run once the system is started and booted, and it's looking at this plist right here. System volumes update.plist. If it notices that there's a change there, the system can detect there's a software update happening here. And then what it's going to do is it's going to run this string. The OpenCore Legacy Patcher app, OpenCore prepare for update. And when we go over here, what it says is that we're going to cache that KDK for the OS to be installed. So that's what the macOS update plist does. If it detects there's an update, it's going to start trying to download that KDK and prepare the KDK if needed. The second one is the OS caching plist. So let's take a look at that. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch this new system live. We've got our KDK folder here, is we can execute update now, and it's going to start that process. We're going to click agree, and it's going to start to download. Now what's going to happen is the background, look at that, OpenCore Legacy Patcher immediately popped up because it's watching that watch path, and here it is. OpenCore Legacy Patcher has detected that a macOS update is being downloaded, 14.2. The patcher needs to be prepared for the system update and will download any additional resource may need post-update. This may take a few minutes. The patcher will exit when it's done, and look at that. It is downloading the 14.2 KDK and it's going to store it here in the KDK folder, and it's going to have that when it comes back up and can't use the 14.1 KDK anymore like it used to be able to do in the past. And that's what's going to be able to protect you in the future. Now, as long as you see this happening, you're good to go. If you're doing this and you have a Mac that, and I'm going to have to put the list down in the description of the Macs that need kernel debug kit, this is what you're going to need to see or you're going to have some problems. So this is the message that you're going to want to see. And there it is. There's the cache 14.2 KDK that the system is going to use when it comes back up, and it can't download that because it doesn't have the proper drivers for Wi-Fi. And that's why we were able to get it to work before, because we connected it to Ethernet. It was able to download the KDK and everything was fine. But if you needed that Wi-Fi, it did not work with these drivers. So we now have the 14.2 that's going to match the software update, and we're going to be A-OK when the system comes back up. So as you can see, the patcher is still working, and the macOS Sonoma 14.2 beta is downloading in the background. And we'll let this go because there's some additional things that need to be done. We're going to click the OK button here, and now we can see that the patcher is closed, and we are ready and prepared to go. Okay, we're back after a software update, and as you can see by the white background and the non-transparent dock, we do not have acceleration because of the update. So we need to reapply the root patches to grant acceleration, get back our Wi-Fi that's not working properly, and get everything back in alignment. But we've got an immediate problem here. The automatic root patcher is not coming up like it should. After every update, the root patcher should run in the background and pop up and says, hey, we noticed that you installed a software update and you need to be able to install the root patches to get acceleration and everything working. So I'm going to show you what is wrong with that, and then I'll show you how we can get working around that, because what we need to do is open up the OpenCore Legacy Patcher application and manually do it, but I'll show you the actual problem. If we go into our library launch agents folder, we can see where the root patcher is. This is run as the user, and this is the actual file. That's a plist, that's a launch agent that will run every time the machine loads. So we'll open this up with BBEdit, and the problem is right here. Luckily, I was able to talk to Makola about this. This piece here is the problem. There's permission problems with trying to write to the log. So we can actually remove this piece out of here, like this. And we'll unlock it, and we'll do one more backspace. And then all we need to do is save it, enter our password, and now we'll reboot. Now what will happen is the launch agent will be able to run properly and then kick off the automatic root patcher without failing on the log. And Makola recognized that was a problem and said that he was immediately going to work on getting that fix into the next build, which is really great. And that's a testament to how quickly and how passionate he is to be able to get some of these things fixed up, which is really wonderful. And remember, this unaccelerated state might be a little slow for your machine. Just give it a little bit of time to fire up. You might hear the fans, it might be getting warm, and that's totally normal until we get those patches installed properly. So now let's give it a second here, and hopefully the root patcher will kick off. And there it is. That's exactly what we want to see. So as soon as we removed those two logging pieces, it was able to run the launch agent, and it was able to pop up what we normally should see after a software update for macOS. And we can see we have graphics drivers and networking for wireless. Now all we need to do is click OK. But again, if you don't want to go in here and edit or touch this file or anything, that's totally fine. So all you need to do is fire up the OpenCore Legacy Patcher application and then kick off the root patches. So I'm going to cancel this because I want you to be able to see this in action. Here we go. Look at that. The automatic root patcher is kicking it off from the command line, and this is what's happening in the background as soon as the Mac comes up. And there's our GUI. So let's go through this. We'll click OK. Type in our password. and there it goes. And I found that KDK that we had earlier, that we had all prepared, so that should be good to go. Okay, now it's rebuilding the kernel cache, and all we need to do is reboot. Restart. And there we go. There's our Wi-Fi. There's our Bluetooth. There's our nice transparent dock. We are looking good to go. Keep in mind, if you look here, you'll notice that the auto patcher rewrote itself, and that's why this is coming back here after we even saved it. The new version 1.2.1 will fix this. It'll remove this, so you don't even have to worry about this. Like I said, don't worry about editing this. It'll be fixed in the new release. You can just run those patches manually after installing the latest update. And that covers the auto root patcher that had some issues after the 1.2.0 update. Let me know in the comments if you had any questions with this situation. Now, I've had a couple people say that the system on Sonoma is a little bit slow. And there's a couple things that we can do to quicken it up. The first thing is that after a software update, give it some time. It's going to run spotlight indexing. It's going to run some checks in the background and some maintenance tasks. Let that all finish. And that could take anywhere between 10, 15, 20 minutes. The fans might run high. The machine might run a little hot while it's finishing those. But once it's done, it should start to calm down after that. Now, if you're still running slow after that, there's a couple things like we talked about. One of the first things we can do is disable Siri. So if we go into system settings, we'll go into Siri and Spotlight. We want to be able to turn Siri off. That's one step. The next thing I could recommend is going into Spotlight Privacy and dragging in your main drive and disabling Spotlight just for now, just to see how the performance goes. If you don't notice any improvement, then just go back in here and take this out by clicking the Macintosh hard drive and removing it. Spotlight will work again. The other thing we can do is go into the wallpaper or the screensaver, and we can disable the live wallpaper that comes up because it takes a lot of resources. So what I clicked on here is Flurry. Go down here and you can click on these older screensavers that don't take as much resources, like the Hello or the Flurry. And then we can also go back to the wallpaper and click one of the previous ones that are not these live wallpapers. So we can go just click our normal dynamic Sonoma wallpaper, or even one that's not dynamic down here in the bottom. For example, the royal blue, there's no dynamic at all about this, and then you can see it downloaded super quick because it's a simple background. And check to see how the performance is. Does any of those things help improve? They may. And the other thing you want to do is you want to look into Activity Monitor, and then Utilities, and then Activity Monitor, and you can see what is causing the system slowdowns. You can sort it by CPU up here, and then make sure it's sorted by the highest CPU. And if you see one of these processes using anywhere over maybe 10%, see, well, this is what you should see. A pretty idle system, maybe anywhere between 95 and 98% should be free when nothing's running. But if you don't see that and there's something else really cranking up here, take a closer look. And that might be able to help you free up some of the system on here that could slow down your Mac. So hopefully some of these little tips help you pick up Sonoma. Again, Sonoma is still a work in progress, so that's why we're kind of having to do these. We do not have to do these for macOS Big Sur, Monterey, or Ventura because they are rock solid. Let me know in the comments if these helped you at all, or if you have any tips that you've done to help you quicken the system up for macOS Sonoma. Okay, now that we got macOS Sonoma fully covered for the next 10 years, why don't we talk about our old trusty trio, macOS Ventura, macOS Monterey, and macOS Big Sur, on whether it's safe on the 1.2.0 update. So let's start off with macOS Ventura. The demonstration Mac that we're using for this test is a mid-2015 15-inch MacBook Pro Retina. We've got macOS Ventura 13.6.1. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, I heard Ventura 13.6.2 came out. Well, that version is only for certain M1 and M2 Macs that had a 120 Hertz ProMotion display to fix an issue there. And the other version of macOS Ventura 13.6.2 was for M3 Macs, the base model 14-inch, and the iMacs that were shipped with Ventura 13.5. So we can see here with SWVerge, we are on 13.6.1, the latest version that is compatible, and we are on 1.2.0. And we can see here with the install root patches that we are A-OK. All patches are already installed, and we've got Wi-Fi, we've got Bluetooth sound. Everything is looking good to go. There's no performance issues. Everything's A-OK on macOS Ventura. And again, remember, there's 83 different models, so it is extremely hard to test every single configuration. But the idea here is at least we catch one basic machine here and we don't catch any major issues. We might find an issue with a very particular hardware, and that's why the developers are trying to get a copy of these models to be able to test more through the Open Collective. All right, now let's talk about macOS Monterey. The current version of macOS Monterey available is 12.7.1. There was no associated 12.7.2 update that came out with macOS Ventura and the updates for macOS Sonoma. That's the standard version that everybody's on for macOS Monterey. And we installed OpenCore Legacy Patcher 1.2.0, and we've got our sound, we've got our Bluetooth, we've got our Wi-Fi. Everything's looking okay on this demonstration Mac, which is a early 2013 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro. Everything's A-OK. And last but not least is good old trusty macOS Big Sur. Now keep in mind, macOS Big Sur is now officially dead. Apple is no longer supporting macOS Big Sur, and it still works very well. The final version of macOS Big Sur is 11.7.10. So if you're not on there, make sure you update to the latest version. And we are running OpenCore Legacy Patcher 1.2.0, and everything's working great. We got our sound, our Wi-Fi, and our Bluetooth, our nice transparent bar, no issues whatsoever. And again, you're starting to see a theme here. The good old 3 trio of OSs are working very well, no problems at all. So again, keep that in mind if you're looking for your main Mac to be really reliable with barely any issues at all. Pick one of these guys and you're going to be A-OK until Sonoma gets to a place where not as many changes are being made. Wow, what a video. I hope that this was useful to you, and I know it's long and I know I went over a ton of detail, but the idea behind this is to help you learn a little bit more about the inner workings of the patcher. The more you learn, the more you'll be able to troubleshoot or help others when they run into a problem. I want to thank all of you, all the viewers, all your comments, all your questions, all your thumbs up, all your shares. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, and I try to do my best to get these videos out in a timely fashion, but as you can see with all the changes and all the issues that were going on, it's hard to keep track, and I want to make sure I get the latest and proper information and I get the proper testing done. That's why I brought in so many different Macs into this video to be able to test, to try to get you the most information that can possibly be gathered to give you an idea of where the latest update is at. I want you to know too that Macola sees your comments, and sometimes even the developers can get in a down spot when there's a lot of complaints about the issue. When something doesn't work right or something doesn't install correctly, people can get upset, and I totally understand it, right? If you're using a machine and something breaks, everybody has frustrations with that. But the large majority of you have been so understanding and thankful, and Macola sees that, and I'll tell you, it picks him up, because when he sees a lot of emails and a lot of communique come through of complaints, and when he sees those wonderful comments that you put on there, I got to tell you, I think that he and the developers truly appreciate that. And we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.